Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Dan.
This
Stone.
is Dexter from The
This
Offspring.
is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is David Labb.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick
I'm
Gillette.
Krista
This is
Vernoff.
Dr. Bob Greenberg.
I'm Laird Hamilton.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, I'm Mark Valley.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
All right, so you want me to go, hey, this is Mikey Bee. I'm the host of Undiscovered Americans, and today I'm going to be on the Break It Down show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John Leon Guerrero, Mark Valley, and Pete A. Turner.
Mikey Bee is an SF guy. He's a special forces guy. He's not from San Francisco. He's from the Midwest and all over because your dad was an Army guy.
Yeah, so I grew up all over the world, kind of an amalgam of chaos, being a military child, yeah.
And one of the reasons why I want to have you on is obviously I'm helping you guys produce your show, Undiscovered Americans. You're off to a great start. The show is going to drop soon. Probably by the time this goes up, the show will be out. And if not, it'll be shortly thereafter. We can find you guys at undiscoveredamericans.com. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. www.undiscoveredamericans.com. Come on over, check us out. Click those links and share the shit out of us with your friends.
And I love the name because, well, it's about undiscovered Americans. And in my opinion, the greatest American I know, someone you know, he's your co-host, or as you guys just say, host. He's a host with you, is Johnny Walker. Tell me a little bit about your host that you work with.
So Johnny Walker and I have known each other since back in the day in Iraq. When I say back in the day, that's like 2006 or so. Johnny and I crossed paths doing some Secret Squirrel stuff. He was my interpreter off and on. And Johnny and I, we actually just accidentally bumped into each other here in the States. So Johnny and I really didn't tell anybody that we knew each other, and we didn't acknowledge each other's existence until about 5-6 months ago. And we both came up to each other like two dogs sniffing butts and like, are you so-and-so? Are you so-and-so? Yeah. And then we kind of vetted each other out. I'm like, holy shit, man, where do you up? Like, how'd you get to America? And it just kind of exploded into this whole thing. I kind of prodded Johnny into starting the podcast because, one, helping him discover America. Yeah. It's an awesome journey with him. Like, there's just little things that this guy doesn't know, which is mind-blowing, and it's awesome, and it's great to watch him on this journey. The second thing is we wanted to provide a platform for just average, everyday Americans to become household names and to get their narrative and their stories out there of just triumph. You know, our goal is to inspire, educate, entertain, and that's what we want to do.
When I called Johnny, so first off, those of you who don't know, because I'm realizing that not everybody may know, but Johnny Walker also was my interpreter in Iraq. We did this thing in 2004, and I'm actually fortunate enough to be captured in his book on one of the chapters. I can't say which one, but you guys should all buy Codename Johnny Walker and see the upcoming movie because that's going to be awesome. This is the story of a guy who was from Iraq. He found us sort of, when we were over there and did incredible things. He's the only guy I know of that's never been through buds but can legitimately wear a trident on his chest as if he's a Navy SEAL because he's been on more Iraq-based SEAL missions than any SEAL was ever there.
Yeah.
And he is an incredible person. But like you said, you're like, you are the weirdest dude I know. He didn't know about evolution. That's another thing you wouldn't think about.
Yeah. So one thing, too, when you listen to our podcast, you've got to understand that Johnny came from a society that unless you were, come from a highfalutin community in Iraq, you were poorly educated.
Right.
So Johnny's education, is a high school equivalent education, but realistically, what does that mean in today's day and age? Probably 9th, 10th grade level.
Sure.
Max.
And a lot of inaccuracies with what because you and I both have talked to a lot of Iraqis, and you see these things where you're like, how can you live on this planet? Because it's not that way. Like, this is not science, but they swear that it is.
Yeah. Just like Johnny can't even tell you what his real birthday is.
Sure. Yeah.
June 1st, the year of the Great Flood of Mosul. Mm-hmm. It's hilarious.
How high did you jump, Johnny? You were a record-setting high jumper in your country. That was really high.
Yeah, their numbers, it's phenomenal. His journey and his story, it's awesome and it's captivating.
Let's talk a little bit about your journey because you also are a fascinating dude. So you're an SF guy, and in the SF world, there's all kinds of different jobs. You became a warrant officer, which makes you a technician of special operations. In effect, an expert in special operations.
Yes. So I'm an expert of special operations, and my peers would probably haze me a little bit over that. But yeah,
But I mean, but that is no shit what you are, though. I mean, yes, granted there's a code and you got to act a certain way, but I'll take that on for you. You are there is so the colonel gives the commander that you work with a mission, and he looks at you and he looks at the NCO and he says, "What do we need to get this done?" And you're like, "Well, here are how all the pieces fit together."
yeah, I'm a long-term, strategic visionary type guy on the team. I am a master of UW, unconventional warfare. For those that don't know what that is, Google unconventional warfare and you'll fully understand. We do everything by, with, and through host nation counterparts. We typically try to go in before major war breaks out and work alongside existing military, paramilitary, or guerrilla forces to achieve U.S. objectives in that country. And there's never a direct answer to the right solution.
Right.
And so you just got to be creative and crafty and really understand this theory, because it's a theory, and apply this theory in an appropriate manner, tying in the cultures, customs, and traditions of that country to achieve your objectives.
So you don't just start off as a warrant officer. You get a job first, and there's so just for the audience's sake, there's an X-ray who sort of you're an apprentice in effect. In terms of civilian kind of terms, you're learning about being on a team, and you're there to augment and do your job for the most part. And I know I'm simplifying, but trying to keep it simple. And then there's alphas, bravos, charlies, deltas, echoes, even foxes, and some of these things mean different things. But there are 4 core jobs. Which one were you initially? And tell us about that.
I was an 18 Delta Special Forces medic, which in the civilian world would be the equivalent of a trauma PA. We could write prescriptions. I could throw a chest tube. I could throw a chest tube in my sleep still to this day. They ingrain that so deeply in you. Venous cut downs. You can run ACLS codes. So you are an austere hospital as a singleton. As a single person, you are an austere hospital. And that's kind of how I viewed myself. As a hospital in a bag, and that bag wasn't light. It's sitting right around the corner if you want to pick it up. It weighs about 45, 50 pounds by itself.
All right, so let's go there then. Okay, so you're right, 45, 50 pounds. Your job is to keep everybody healthy when they get the flu, because that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, you're all living close proximity. My buddy Dr. Rich and I, we were forward deployed, talking every day, asking questions. He got as sick as you can get without having to come back in from the field. And once you're out, you don't want to come back. And I'm like, oh, great. I'm about to get as sick as this guy because there's just no avoiding it. So you're there to take care of all of these dudes that have to stay healthy, plus whoever else is attached to you. And that's after the mission. And when you go on a mission, you're not just carrying IV bags. You're carrying a full load, maybe a double load, and everything else.
Yeah, I'm carrying the radio batteries. I'm carrying my full ammunition load, 600 rounds, 5.56, 100 rounds, 9mm, whatever it is for that operation, breaching charges, everything, plus an aid bag on top of it.
Right. So in my experience in Iraq, a lot more mounted missions, and we didn't have to be as heavy with our gear, our kit, because a lot of it was get off the MRAP, go walk for a little bit, and then you had multiple MRAPs with 50 cals, and they could get to us. Afghanistan, different story.
Yeah.
You had to bring everything you could, and you could not go too far because there was no help coming in time to help you. Like if you get 45 minutes into the future and you bite off more than you can chew, which is easy to do, you're in a really bad situation. I mean, and that's my direct experience, but you really had to be careful on how hot is it, how much water, how much weight can we bear and go over a mountain? Because as an unconventional warfare expert, you know that you don't just run up a mountain, because if someone picks a fight with you halfway up and you can't move, you're fucked.
Oh, yeah. And then depending on the terrain, like being a guy coming out of 1st Special Forces Group, I did all of Asia and Middle East, right? Those are the countries I operated in. And running up a mountain in Afghanistan in spring versus running up the side of a mountain in the Philippines in spring, 2 different beasts. You know what I mean? The terrain's going to dictate. But 9 times out of 10, like, the load that we carry is significant, and guys get dehydrated, they get fatigued. So you're dealing with all these compounding problems.
I answer a lot of questions on Quora about modern combat, and there's young guys who don't know the difference, and I'm making the assumption they're guys because they ask a lot of video game kind of questions. They always want to know, like, do you bring 2 Gurkhas? Do you bring a sword? You know, like, it's really crazy stuff. Like, if you brought 3,000 rounds of ammo, I'm like, 3,000 rounds of ammo? What the fuck are you talking about?
Are the Huns coming?
Yeah, exactly. You know, actually, there was I answered a scenario. It was like you had like a team, like an ODA. If you have like a team of Special Forces guys, and they take on a legion of Romans, like, and then you had all this ammo, what would you do? And I'm like, I don't command SF guys, but I'd be like, leave that ammo here, get to running and get away from these guys and shoot them, you know?
Yeah.
But what... Help us understand what you do carry, because there are things you have to carry that have nothing to do with reaching out and touching the enemy.
Oh, man, as an 18 Delta, like, the things that I carried, because you never know what you're going to encounter when you're out there, right? Like, there's 3, I want to preface this question with 3 things. As an SF guy, like, there's 3 adjectives that describe what we do.
Okay.
Humanitarian, number 1. We're diplomats.
Right.
And then we're warriors.
Yeah.
Right? So I pack my aid bag with that auspice, right? So, like, pack my aid bag, because you come in contact with some crazy stuff. So my aid bag would have just, you know, the regular, like, ophthalmoscope, you know, otoscope, you know, look in the ears, the eyes, the same stuff you see at your doctor every day, on top of a full trauma kit as well. And when I say trauma kit, like, when you go in the hospital and you see that big red or blue cart that says, you know, code cart or code red cart, I had all that stuff plus your normal everyday family practice stuff mushed in one bag.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just in there. It's in exactly the spot you need it, because you're, in effect, your own surgical nurse. You know?
Yeah. And one of the guys on the team, typically a Bravo or a Charlie, the engineer or the weapons guy, like somebody that I was close to on the team would know what to hand me, when to hand it, and how it was packaged. And everything was perfectly aligned, like ready to open in a moment's notice, perfectly labeled. This thing is like, you got to be OCD about it. And so with this aid bag, I could probably realistically treat 6 team guys for trauma. So IV bags, medications, narcotics, the full array to run a trauma code on 6 guys.
Right.
Plus a few, like, I call them sick call medicines, your everyday family practice stuff, some Motrin, some Tylenol. I hate that aid bag. It sits in that closet still to this day.
Yeah.
And I look at it, and it's been packed since September 29th, 2009. And it's ready to roll. And I know exactly where everything is in that bag.
Yeah.
I opened it for the first day here in the living room before I went to the range just to check it once over. Like, it's exactly the way I packed it.
When you are out running missions every day, how often are you checking that bag? I know, like, I know you know where everything is, but you and I both also know, like, I have to put my hands on the lactated ringers bag. I have to.
So when I'm out running operations, that bag gets checked probably 2 times a day, when I wake up and when I go to bed.
Right.
And anytime it's out of my eyesight, I just open it up, zip, and just do a once over with the bag and just check where everything's at.
I read a book by a guy that was, I don't know, maybe he was like a civil affairs guy, and he talked about how they got hit on a mission while they were driving A to B in Iraq. And he said, I checked, and there was no IV bag in my bag. And I'm like, then you're not a fucking pro. You can make that mistake every now and then and still be a pro. But you're not a pro if you're not checking your stuff off. There's certain things you're going to mess up on, but that can't be one.
Yeah, when it comes to people's lives, I think that's what separates, the men from the boys, or the tier, the spec ops guys from the conventional purpose force. And I don't want to take anything away from conventional Army or conventional Navy guys. But it is a no-fail mission on a team. There's no backups or stopgaps when you're the medic on the team, or you're the commo guy on the team, and you're, looking at the crypto for the radios or batteries. Like, everybody's a professional on a team, and it is a true zero defect environment.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you can have a bad day, but you can't have 3 bad days.
No.
If you get 3 bad days, your shit's in the hallway, and, like, you're gonna have to find another job.
That's how you get kicked off a team. The team kicks you off, and that's it.
They change the code to the door, and your shit is in the hallway, and you come to work, and you're just like, well, guess I got to find a new job. This never happened to me, but I did help
It does happen.
remove people from
and those people
from
don't come
teams.
back. They might go to another team somewhere else, maybe, but most likely never to be on a team again.
Yeah, they take a support role traditionally. Yeah.
They go on the Bravo team, basically.
No, the Bravo team's the B team, and that's still really close to the team. They typically go to the battalion, which is a C team, or up to the group, which is the D team.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's bad news bears.
So let's put ourselves in a valley in Afghanistan. We're well off the main route. We're maybe 2 districts off of that. How far out do you feel comfortable patrolling? Because you know that, I mean, okay, yes, there's way above us, there are fast movers, fighter jets. There may be some eyes above us with some kind of drone coverage. But realistically, how far, because this is the thing that people don't get about understand about Afghanistan, is to move from A to contact, wherever that is. You've got to get kitted up, get everybody ready, and get moving. And that takes time. Even if it's 15 minutes, which you know is really fast, like
Yeah.
you're ready. 15 minutes, you're sitting there waiting to get called, and that's not how it works for reals. So it takes 45 minutes at a minimum, and then you've got to get from A to B and get there in a condition to fight. And you're at 10,000 feet, maybe higher. You're going over really rugged terrain. How far out can a team operate reliably? And I know that's a hard question, but just in general. A mile, 2 miles?
Oh, hell no. So an SF team is actually designed to but support from host nation assets. And we rely on the host nation network and kind of, and I hate to water this down, but to give the listeners, you know, a little more perspective and insight, when you're working with host nation guys, they provide everything for you. All your food, your water, all the logistics that go into it. And so therefore, we're able to operate capabilities and capacity of. And so with that, I would be comfortable operating, well, I've personally operated 3 countries away from my next supporting element.
Let's put you in a real conflict zone like Afghanistan. We're in a valley in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So realistically, how far out away from your house? You're not in the house. You're out in the villages trying to find ALP, the local police in Afghanistan. You're trying to recruit these guys. How far can you guys operate out there? Okay.
Yeah.
So pretty far.
With what we have organic to a team, even further, I mean, it's all limited, you know, there's terrain's going to dictate.
Right.
Everybody always says MET-TC.
Sure.
Yeah, so the whole MET-TC piece of it, depending on the situation with the locals, depending on the situation, you know, the size of our force, the amount of logistics we have, the terrain, the will of the populace, all this stuff is going to kind of dictate that. But there is no limit to an SF team, honestly.
Yeah.
Those are the factors that you have to factor in.
So again, going into setting realistic expectations, you get an SF team out and someone chooses to engage you guys. How long can an SF team fight for? Because you do have a limited amount of ammo, and you are.
Let's just paint this picture for your audience real quick. A 5-minute gunfight is an eternity.
Oh, yeah.
So you obviously put that into your planning considerations, right? The further out you go, your ability to sustain yourself, the ability to provide adequate care and support for casualties, all this stuff. Let's play this Afghanistan situation with you. We could be deep into the hinterlands of Afghanistan, seriously deep.
It's a hard question to ask because
it really
there's
is
a lot of variables.
There's so many variables. Like you could drop an SF team in North Korea today.
Now let me ask you this question, because let's talk about the humanitarian and diplomatic side of it. When you send a team out into a basin in Afghanistan, what's going to happen more? Are there going to be more rounds let loose, or are there going to be more conversations with locals?
Oh, it's going to be more conversations with locals.
By what, a factor of what, 10?
Probably 100.
100.
I would say 100 conversations for every round that's let off by a Green Beret.
That's the shocking thing that I really wanted to paint a picture of. You've got this area where you guys are specifically trained. You can go far afield, and you can live in and amongst the locals. And it's any country. It's not just this country or that country. But the fact is that you can't go out and shoot everybody. And if you do choose to do that, then you're going to have problems because you can be outmaneuvered at 50 miles, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not diplomatic. That's one of your main things.
Yeah. When diplomacy fails, that's when all these small unit tactics and our ability to fire and maneuver as a team. So you got to think of an SF team as like a Maserati on the
Okay.
battlefield. Think of it as like a small little sports car. An SF team is able to turn, flex, change, and move, right?
Right.
You take like a conventional like military brigade, right? A BCT,
Yeah.
brigade combat team from like the Army. They're like a semi-truck. They're making big sweeping turns to change and adapt to their enemy. So there's a huge difference between what special forces can do versus what a conventional unit can do. And not just in terms of enemy tactics,
Right.
but in terms of diplomacy, in terms of, constraints on the battlefield, political, considerations, any type of sensitivities. We're able to navigate those and to weave this route to success.
With that said, let's go back to the combat side. You and I both have been in a bunch of combat, and I remember the firefight I was in where time started to reliably slow down for me. It took a little bit of time, but I'm like, oh, it's a gunfight. And I was able to, because it takes time. I mean, exposure and everything. Do you have a sense for when that was for you or what it took to get to that point? Can you talk about that at all?
So you want me to talk about...
When did you realize that, when was it not a guttural adrenaline response and it was a more cognitive response? When did the training set in and time slow down for you?
I would honestly say the Special Forces qualification course, which is typically 2.5, sometimes 3 years, depending on your MOS and your performance to get through, right? So I went through the Q course straight. I had no repeats during the qualification course. And I went through in a little over 2 years, right, to be an 18 Delta. And the 18 Delta course is a year of that. So my first deployment to Iraq, my first gunfight was very anticlimactic, because it was almost like that scene from Black Hawk Down, and like, are they shooting at us?
Yeah.
Like a guy, we were driving through the market of Tikrit, and there were civilians everywhere, and rounds are just cracking around us.
Right.
And they were just innocent kids, and I can remember all their faces as I look around the market, the women and children and people just walking through the market. It was like a Saturday. And it's like, I can't just indiscriminately fire.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and that was just ingrained in me from my training.
Yeah.
And so with that, like from my very first contact with enemy forces, time had already slowed down. Like, wow, that's what a real round sounds like being shot at me. But there's all these innocent people, and like time did slow down gradually.
Yeah.
But I was very cognizant of the people around me. And if I did something stupid, one, I'm not doing my job right as a medic, right? I'm doing further harm, right?
Yeah. Are you sworn?
No, we're not sworn.
Okay.
No,
but you guys still have an oath that you guys.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
Our the motto of Special Forces is De Oppresso Liber.
Best one of all of them.
Yeah, and free the oppressed for those that are listening. And if I cack a round off and it just skips off a wall and hits someone, like, I'm not doing my job.
Right.
And so that's kind of playing in my mind as well. But this first gunfight was very anticlimactic because it was like bam, 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 rounds coming at the Humvee, and I don't know where it's coming from.
Hardened Humvee or soft side?
It was a hardened Humvee.
Okay.
Light hardened.
Okay, but it's still, you're relatively, I'm going to put quoted fingers, you're relatively safe.
Yeah, and I was on the machine gun as a
Okay.
medic.
Right.
I love the machine gun. I was very proficient
So
with
you're
it.
definitely not Hippocratic oath guy.
No.
It's a self-defense weapon.
But I am a lighter, gentler machine gun hand.
Okay,
that
fair enough.
That Neil Young and all those guys sing about.
Right.
So we're cruising through the market. These rounds start cracking against the Humvee, and I just didn't fire because I didn't know where it was coming from. And I just leaned down through the little hole in the top of the Humvee, and I told the guy, step on it, we're being shot at. And he just sped up, and we got out.
Yeah.
That was just my reaction, because the faces of the kids and the families walking through the market was too much to bear.
You said a lot of things that resonate with me, and I want to color this in because I think these are the conversations that have to happen so folks understand that we're not just these mindless gunfighting people. But that time, it was for me like, oh, I think it slowed down. And this is only in retrospect I could realize this, and it was a gradual thing. And then it was like, oh yeah, okay, we're in a firefight. So this is sort of what it was like for me, like, oh, I think there's people shooting at us. And of course they were. And then the guys that time had already slowed down for were already weapons up, engaging, moving forward, and not indiscriminately shooting. And that's not screwing up for me. I've got to get to the point where they're at, because they're not worried about me anyhow. They're worried about the things that they see, and we're all working in unison.
Yeah.
And you get there. You're like, oh, yeah, that's right. We are in a firefight. Oh, that's right. I've got a gun. Oh, I can shoot these guys. Oh, I can see them if I can see them. And if you can't, you're like, what's going on? Who's got, and you're trying to communicate. And how much unspoken communication is there, too? Because it's not 100 guys on the radio. Yes, it's a cacophony, but it's a very designed, like, there's things going on, but if you don't need to talk, you know to shut the fuck up and listen and look and try to help. And then
Yeah. And that plays into the human brain being like the best supercomputer there is.
Yeah.
Sight, sound, smells, everything's coming in, and your brain is processing all this information rapidly
Right.
before you can fully understand what the fuck is happening.
Yeah.
And thank God for that, because there's been many a times, like during my deployments, where if I just check up for just a split second,
Yeah,
have some tactical patience, I'm able to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I was in a situation with a guy where they were shooting a recoilless rifle, which for the audience is not a rifle, it's a rocket launcher. Just picture a rocket flying towards us. Not a big one, but one that's big enough that it would kill you if it was close to you. And they have been known to have this. I'm like, oh, it's the recoilless rifle. Well, the other guy with me is a reservist guy, and God bless, different job, but he's now in a combat environment. He's just not trained for it. So time hadn't slowed down for him like it had for me. And so, and keep in mind, in this case, I'm a civilian. I've got flip-flops on. I'm there to talk to people. I'm in full cultural
Hearts and
mode.
minds.
Yeah. He looks at me, and I go, it's a cement building. Get to the middle of it. We'll be fine. They're not coming, because that wasn't the thing. And if they do, though we're outside of the camp and in the government center, the camp is literally right next door, and it's a heavy...
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
Reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner,
or at JohnLG69.
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
platoon for the infantry. Let's say, audience, it's 60 dudes with guns, and they want to fight. They're like, please come close. And that's why I knew they weren't, the Afghans wouldn't come close in this case. This guy decides in the middle of this firefight, and they know, the Americans know we're there. The unit knows we're out there engaged with the local. He gets on, breaks in on top of all the other traffic, and starts saying that we're out there. Like, I'm like, chill out, calm down. He's like, we got to go back. So now we go from this cement building, exposed, maybe 100 yards or so, across an open area where, again, not likely to be hurt. We're well out of small arms range. And really, frankly, out of the effective range of that recoilless rifle. But we are now, went from being basically safe to now being exposed. And then there was a 7-turn switchback to get
Serpentine.
Yeah,
Serpentine, baby.
Stupid. So stupid. And I'm embarrassed. I'm like, but what am I going to do? Like, my guy that's with me, I can't stay there, because now that creates more havoc for the guys inside the operations center. So I go back with this guy, and again, I'm wearing flip-flops. So I'm in combat in flip-flops, and we start to go back towards the Serpentine. And what's running towards us? The contract civilian SF guy, who's like, I got to go run towards where the fight is, because I got, Afghan dudes that run security for this camp. And I'm like, this is so embarrassing. This is so terrible. But I had to let it go, because the other guy just he'd never been in combat,
Yeah.
So he chose, instead of freeze, he chose flight. And that's a legitimate response when you haven't been trained properly, and that's not his job to be trained for.
And I dust this dude.
Right.
Bam, bam, bam. And it's like a fucking cartoon. The guy falls out of the window head first.
Yes.
It's pretty funny.
And we're laughing about someone dying, but this is the comedy of warfare. I mean,
But it's a terrorist.
Yeah,
He's trying
he's trying to do
protect
the
our
same
own.
thing. Yeah. So, well, I've got to give the context, because people don't always understand. But yeah, you're right. You worked your whole career, and look, guys like us that have seen a lot of time in combat zones, we appreciate the desire to be there with us, and not everybody's afforded that chance. Somebody's got to make sure that there's food. They've got to make sure that the plans are done. I worked with a colonel, a lieutenant colonel, who was preparing to probably retire within a couple of years. He's like, I'm finally going to go. It's just the opportunity's never really been there. Like I always chose to do whatever the military wanted. I didn't push it. And I didn't give him a lot of shit, but I gave him a lot of shit. But like, man, something wrong with the uniform. Like you don't got a and if you've been in combat, you've got a patch on your right shoulder. I always pointed it out, but mostly, because it was funny. Because even then, as a colonel, he's not really going to be in combat. He's going to be, sitting next to some warm bread, the popcorn machine.
Yeah, he's got a coffee pot right next to him.
He's like, I'm in combat. I'm really in this shit now. But it is funny how, the conversations about these things, where these things happen. Like I won't even get into the stories, but I've been in situations where people are openly dying, and it's funny in a lot of ways. There's a lot of things that are happening that you have to understand the scenario. So we don't take this stuff lightly. Believe me, Mikey and I have a lot of respect for life and a love for life and for the people in other countries. We've been there.
And you have to laugh at that from several different angles, right? So like, because he's got the shits.
Yeah.
And then the other aspect is this guy thinks he's just randomly going to like
crazy
just mow people down. From my aspect, like you have to laugh at that.
Yeah.
Because you have to make light of the situation to cope with it.
That's a good transition. Let's do this for a little bit because you and I both suffer from PTSD. Mine primarily triggered as a realization of I'm home and no one gives a fuck and I'm obsolete. Like I couldn't find work or anything else.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, oh, well, there's all this damage I have to deal with now. But it was really brought on by coming home. And I don't know what triggered yours, but you were significantly damaged by all this too because we didn't have like these momentous big and then the shark came and ate my friend in half. But it was just like nicks and cuts and constant damage.
Scrapes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, to our psyche where you had to do it. And you went through a whole program.
Oh, I went through several programs. So for me, my journey's been a little unique, right? So like nobody can give me a 100% answer if it's the 8 concussions, traumatic brain injuries that I've had, or if it's PTSD.
Or a combination.
And there, somewhere in the middle lies the truth, right? So for me, I had spent straight on a special forces team.
It's a long time.
Which is damn near unheard of, right?
Yeah.
And it was deployment after deployment after deployment, and I wouldn't take it back. For the people out there listening, I would not take back 1 minute. With my 12 best friends doing great things for other people.
Yeah.
The greatest job ever. But nothing really changed for me until about exactly 180 days from when I stopped deploying. At 180 days, it was like June time frame. They were like, "Hey, you've been on a team for too long. You're getting old. This is a young man's game. You're off the team." And I'm like, wait, you can't take me from the team.
I'm having so much fun.
I'm like, those are my friends. I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah.
Like a whiny little 8-year-old. Like, I don't know what to do with myself.
Similar to me then. Like where you came back and you're like, wait, hold on. This is all changing. Yeah.
Things got pretty bad for a while. So I came back 6 months, nothing bad. Exactly like 6 months and 1 day, bad shit. So what happened was it was Christmas time and I was at a department store with my kids and the line was like through the damn store. And I had my grandma with me. And we're waiting in line to check out. And if you're a hippie listening, I apologize, but this is the only way I know how to describe this person. They came up in patchwork pants, wearing Birkenstocks, wearing patchouli oil, and dreadlock hair. And I had been waiting in line for quite some time, about an hour almost. The line like wrapped around the store twice. And the lady cut in front of me and she's like, "Oh, it's okay. I only have 2 items." And I was like, "No, it's not okay."
Yeah.
And I tapped her on the shoulder and I said, "Ma'am," I was very polite, very cordial. I said, "Ma'am, the end of the line is back there." And then she gave me this snarky look and comment. And she's like, "Yeah, whatever." I picked up her basket that she was, the little handheld basket. She's putting it on the conveyor belt. And I chucked it.
Nice.
Not just like shot putted it, like 2-hand, like
Captain Kirk spin throw.
I threw this damn thing down an aisle.
Yeah.
All of her goods. And she was like, "Huh," and gave me the scoff, and I put my hands underneath her armpits. I picked her up. I turned 180 degrees, and I set her down, and I started putting my stuff on the counter.
Yeah.
And you would have thought that I crucified Jesus himself. But, like, at that point in time in life, I didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
Like, it was blackout, like,
I can identify
just
with
straight
that.
hate. And my grandma, I love her to death. My grandma Maxine, she looked at me and she goes, "You told that bitch what's up." And in 38 years, I'd never heard my grandma swear.
Yeah.
It was just it was like a cool moment, but then like my grandma gave me that moment of like, yeah, you showed her what's up. But then I looked down at my kids and I was like, oh man, I'm such a dick.
Yeah.
And so the police came, obviously, right? Thank God the officer that responded was my neighbor.
Yeah.
He showed up and he was like, "Hey man, you look like a 20-pound bag of mashed up assholes. Have you been sleeping? Have you been eating?" And I just thought like, hey, nothing's changed for me really, right?
Right,
Like I'm living these like 4-hour nights of sleep, like, and he's like, "You need to get some help." And then told me to scat, he'd take care of it all, and like he swept it under the rug a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Feelings were hurt. Nobody was physically hurt, right?
Right.
So I went to work the next day and I was like, "Hey man, I'm having some problems." So I started telling the guys, "I'm having some problems." And there's no stigma at work. And this is a special forces community. There's no stigma. I was like, "Hey, I'm having some issues." And they were like, "Oh, it's PTSD. It's PTSD, bro. You got to go talk to the wizard. Go talk to the wizard, bro." So I go over and I sit down and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's totally PTSD. It's this." And they wanted me to start talking about my feelings.
Yes.
I don't mind it.
Sure.
Hey, this is the stuff I've been through. But like I've got all this time on a team and I've seen all this bad shit and bad shit's happened to me.
Where would you like to begin?
Like, you got 6 years? Let's go ahead and chat about this.
Right.
It blew the hinges off. This lady was...
I want you to press pause because I want to call it the same things. I go to the VA intake and they're like, "Let's talk about your traumatic event." And I'm like, first off, fuck you.
Yeah,
exactly. Because this is a fucking intake. You know, like if you're prepared to deal with the consequences, great. Because like you, if I'm in a line, if I'm in the wrong kind of situation, the other day, some friends of mine, we saw a drunk girl walking towards her car, and I was going to be me that was the closest one to her to make sure that she didn't drive away. And if this had happened, say 2 years ago, I probably would have put my hands on her to ensure that she wouldn't do it, not to harm her, but sense of
the level of aggression. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And so then I realized, oh wait, hold on, I'm in Orange County. I've tried to reason with you. These lovely people have offered you a ride, so this is now time for the police. So either I'm going to call the police right now and they will solve it, and you're not leaving this little boxed-in area because there were two dudes. I was one and another guy, basically surrounding her at her driver's side door with nowhere to go. But if that was 2 years ago, she wouldn't have had her keys. She likely would have had a foot on her back, and she would have been face down in the parking lot. So these things, this is not like Mikey's story is not rare. I mean, being in line, like I never had to wait in line for shit because
being a Green Beret, I got to cut the line.
Yeah. I mean,
I was somebody important.
Yeah.
I don't expect that treatment in America, but I do have.
I guess what I'm trying to say is
patience,
either one of us probably would have responded similarly in that situation, and really it doesn't matter. It's two things. Go ahead. Who cares? But we're not. Our ability to impose our will on things and choosing not to is out of whack in America.
Yeah, I feel like, looking back at that in retrospect, like a couple different things. One, I was dealing with a lot, right? The sight, sound, smells. My brain was overwhelmed and I was in fucking hate mode, right? That's what happens. Especially now that I know what's wrong with me, my TBIs, like I was overwhelmed by events. I had zero bandwidth, to quote the doctors that actually treated me.
Mm-hmm.
I had no bandwidth.
Sure.
I had no love to give, no empathy, no sympathy, nothing for this person. And so therefore, like, that was the response you got.
Yeah.
And, like, everybody wants to say, "Oh, you need to be patient. You need to be aware." Well, guess what, sons of bitches? You guys need to be aware of guys like us.
Yeah.
Because the country has never asked this of a generation ever. Nobody's ever asked us to go out for 10 to 15 years and to come home and just to be normal people.
Chill out. Have fun.
Because I'll tell you right now, before you segue, Pete, like, I would fly from Tikrit on a helicopter, about a 2-hour helicopter ride, down to Baghdad, get on a plane either in Baghdad or in Kuwait, fly from there straight back to Seattle-Tacoma Airport.
Yeah.
And I would be from combat operations to 18 hours at my front fucking door.
Yeah.
18 hours.
Yeah. I've done 24 hours of and I wasn't a Green Beret in this time frame, but still 24 hours from maybe 28 hours from a mission to home, and I'm Pete in Fairfield.
Yeah, I've showed up at home with blood on my boots from the night before.
Yeah.
And that's no shit.
That doesn't surprise me. Okay, so you go to see the wizard. They think it's PTSD, and you need some awareness and some presence.
Yeah, so the PTSD guys, the psychologist is like, oh, you need to get on these meds, you need to get on all this stuff. So, like, they really didn't evaluate me. It was about a 1-hour conversation to encompass 15, 16 years worth of shit.
As a medic, do you know to take care of your own care?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I'm very self-aware to take care of myself, and we can talk about that with some of the concussions as well. I'm not the best patient by any means.
Okay.
And I believe more in holistic medicine, and the body will heal itself, and meditation.
I'm talking more of like when you go to get care. Like, do you remember, like, I have to fight for my own care here? Because, like, the VA is great in a lot of things, and we have very few complaints between this. But if you allow the system to, the system will put you through the system, and you won't get taken care of.
You'll be a victim of the system.
Are you able to deal in the system and make sure that you're taken care of?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
I know what's expected of each level of care, right? Because I hold these people accountable if it's one of my own guys.
Right.
So I'm totally aware of what's coming. But I've never been through the process myself. And this being my first time doing PTSD type work, I go in, I speak to a psychologist. She's like, oh, that's great, blah, 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 blah. Opening a bunch of cans of worms, sends me over to the psychiatrist, like, you have depression, you have anxiety, you have this, you have this. Here, take this cocktail of pills. She handed me like 3 different pills.
Yeah.
Being a good 18 Delta, I go home,
look them up.
I get in my medical guide, and I start looking up what these medications are. But then there's a website that shows you the synergistic effect of medications. And this cocktail that she gave me actually has a 60% suicide rate.
Dude, Jesus
That's like the
Christ.
first thing that pops up. I didn't even scroll down anymore. I literally took all the pills, went to the bathroom, dumped them in the toilet, and flushed them. And I was like, this is bullshit. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm just angry sometimes. I'm just full of piss and vinegar. After I saw them, like, nothing's getting better, right? I'm not taking the medication. Really don't want to talk. And, like, not to be a dick, and if you're a female listening, please don't take this the wrong way, but I grew up working in an all-male environment, a very type A male personality environment, and the doctor they wanted me to talk to was a female. And I didn't feel like I could relate to her, and I didn't want to share with her all my cool guy shit, and especially stuff that may be sensitive or classified. She didn't have a clearance, so therefore we can't talk about this.
Right, and it's not that they can't do the job, but that's the perception she's got to get past, and because you are going to tell her story
and she was a slick sleeve, so she was a green suiter.
Geez,
she was military, and if you don't know what a slick sleeve is, like, it means you don't have a combat patch.
That's,
you haven't been
that right
downrange.
shoulder we were talking about earlier.
If you've been in the military since 2005 and you haven't been to fucking war, you're dead to me.
Yeah.
Like, other people are doing the heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You found a way to get out of it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe 5 or 6 guys in all of Department of Defense are some lucky sons of bitches that didn't have to go. But the rest of them found a way to finagle or weasel their way out of it. And that's my opinion, and if you don't like
you're entitled to it.
If you don't like it, come on to undiscoveredamericands.com, fill out a hurt feelings report, because I really don't care.
You can actually do this. You can actually go to the website and fill out a hurt feelings report. So if your feelings are hurt, by all means, go there and fill it out.
Tell me how I hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
Show me on the doll where we hurt you.
Right.
But at the end of the day, I couldn't relate to this gal. She was sweet. She was honest. And she was a professional, but I couldn't relate to her. And I'm not saying I needed like Sylvester Stallone to be in the room, some big, like, ultra bulgy type A type guy.
Yeah.
But her not having been to combat was a huge factor for me not connecting. So,
and let me say this too. You guys are type A for sure, but you're alphas amongst alphas.
Yeah.
The competition is more likely to be, we are going to go to the bar, and I already know I can get laid. Can I get Mikey Bee laid? That's more of the environment, right? Tell me I'm wrong.
It's totally true.
It's exactly right. So you're talking about guys that are so cocksure that they don't have weakness. They outrun, they outpush, they outshoot, they outperform everybody they come in contact with, including their bros and their team. They're always competing.
Yeah.
So now you have to show some softness and be aware, and there's this girl there. Like, it's just a lot for you to have to deal with.
Yeah, it was a lot for me to deal with, and then, time goes on, and I'm still having the same complaints, but now I'm getting migraines, right? So the migraines are kicking on. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm getting more and more grumpy. I'm avoiding. That's what everybody keeps saying. I was avoiding. But I really just needed time to myself. But the light's about to be illuminated for you in this story. So my buddy tells me about this program in Washington, D.C. called NICO, National Intrepid Center of Excellence. It's for guys that have had head injuries. And he's like, hey, man, check it out. So I fill out the paperwork, and it goes to NICO. How many times you've been hit on the head, hard parachute landing falls, how many times you've done breaching, how many times have you like blown doors inside of a house, thrown flashbangs, all this stuff. And some of these numbers,
Are
I don't know.
ridiculous. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I do not know. Like, at this point in time, I know I've had 250 military free falls plus. That's jumping out of a plane at 12,000 plus feet. And I don't know how many times I've hit my head or landed hard, like how many times the helicopters landed hard, because it's just the job.
And like when you were doing your description too, hardly any of those were enemy initiated. Like, someone sets off an IED, if someone's mortaring you, all of these things all create concussion waves, which I'm going to call them concussion waves on purpose, because this is really damaging.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
And the overpressure from blasts are pretty significant.
Yeah.
And then I started tabulating all my blasts, the IEDs, how many times I felt like I've seen stars or been knocked unconscious. We do fighting at work.
Yeah.
Every Wednesday and Thursday is fist fighting. You
Right.
got some like 8-ounce gloves on, but you're like no hold barred on each
Yeah.
other.
You want to see stars, put on some gloves, get hit in the face.
Yeah, we punch each other. Like,
Yeah.
that's part of the job. And so, like, how many head injuries you have is like the first question. I'll never forget it. I'm like,
All of them?
it's like that, zoink, Shaggy, I don't know.
Zoinks!
That's how I felt,
Yeah.
man. I was like, I honestly don't know how many times I've been bonked in my melon. So I put in some rough guesstimations.
Let me say this.
lowball.
I've hit my head so many times in the military, it quit hurting. I could crush my head on something metal and be like, yeah, I hit my head. Like, I'm not you.
Yeah. And,
So-
but I do know how many times I've been blown up by IEDs.
Sure.
I was knocked unconscious once. And when I woke up from the blast, I'll be in the medic, like, there's no sympathy. The closest hospital's 40 miles away, and
Yeah.
I can't just leave this gunfight and what's happening right now. Sorry, guys, time out. I need to go to the hospital. There's no sympathy on
Right.
the battlefield. And I literally just took my fingers, stuck them in my nose, no blood, stuck my fingers in my ears, no fluid coming out. Let's keep rolling. I just got a headache, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
We got to do this.
Yeah.
So this NICO program, I get a phone call a couple days after putting this packet in from this
If
case.
you guys aren't paying attention right now, now is the time to check in, because what he's about to tell you is crazy. This is what it takes to come back. Please, NICO.
So I go to NICO. I put my packet into NICO, and the social worker calls me, and her name is Eva. And she, like, the most calming, sweetest voice I've ever heard in my life.
Mm-hmm.
She calls me, and she says, hey, Mikey, and literally called me by my nickname. And she's like, hey, Mikey, I just wanted to tell you, you've been accepted to the program. This is what we're going to do for you, and this is what we think is wrong with you before you come. And I was like, okay. And she's like, this is what we're going to do for you. It wasn't like other treatment where it was like, you need to prove yourself or any of this stuff. Prove your case, right?
Right.
So she like starts telling me all this stuff, and I literally like I was in my driveway, and I'm not shitting you, big pipe hitting guy, I almost fell to my knees crying because all the stuff that she offered and said that they were going to do for me, she's like, we know what's wrong with you. And like, it was just enlightening, man. And it was like this huge burden had been lifted off me, because for 5 months I didn't know what the fuck was going on with me. Everybody's like, you're a dick. My kids actually referred to me as the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not gonna like Daddy when he's angry.
Yeah.
Like, and we joke about it today, but while we were at the NICO program, you have to build a mask.
Yeah.
And my kids came the last few days, and they had to build a mask, the two sides of Dad.
Mm-hmm.
And my son made this phenomenal mask. I still have it in the closet. One side is Batman, like, oh, he catches bad guys at night, and the other side was the Hulk.
Mm.
And it crushed my soul.
Yeah.
Like, to have my son see me in that light,
Yeah.
it was devastating. But when I got to NICO, man, the lady's like, there's a lot going on here. It's brain injuries. You're not able to sleep.
Yeah. And by the way, Mikey's welled up. And this is real, and it's making me well up. So I just wanted everybody else to know you guys should be welled up with us, because what your son is reflecting back to you is the thing I always talk about. Like, these injuries that we have, if we could see them, you as a medic could be like, holy fuck, lay down, let me help you.
Yeah.
But we're so fucking tough. We're so good at being a war that we don't recognize how hurt we actually are, you know?
Yeah.
And it takes your kid to show you, and that's fucking devastating. You know?
Dude, it was brutal. So the big thing was I hadn't been sleeping, right? So sleep is the foundation. If you're out there, you're depressed, you're feeling bad for yourself, start getting at a minimum 6 hours sleep.
Right.
This sounds so silly, but this program was like Club Med for operators, for like Spec Ops guys. So all the guys that were there were Delta Force guys, SEAL Team 6, Green Berets, Navy SEALs. And the first week, these little sweet old ladies that were like grandmas taught us how to sleep.
Wow.
And I'll never forget my first night sleeping, dude. This is hilarious. Just bear with us. This is so stupid. You're going to laugh. The first night that I went to sleep, this lady came in. Her name was Adrienne. Sweet gal in her 50s. And she's like rubbing my head to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And like warm milk and cookies before you go to bed. I know that sounds stupid. But like all this stuff from like childhood. And like she's doing it. And like you have warm blankets on top of you. And she puts me to sleep. The next morning, I woke up, and my roommate, Kurt, I knew him from one of the Tier 1 units. Kurt and I woke up, and he's like kicking the fucking door like he's breaching it. And he's like, let me out of here. Let me out of here. Where the fuck am I? What's going on? Ah! And he's just going nuts. And I'm like panicked now, too. Like, what the fuck's happening? Where am I? And this voice comes over the radio, like over through the ceiling, and it's hilarious. She goes, boys, you're sleep drunk. You guys haven't slept in decades.
Yeah.
And this is what normal sleep feels like. Relax. Kirk, breathe. Breathe. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Man. And we calmed down. And so throughout the day, she knows that we haven't slept. So like every day was nap time.
Right.
And Kirk and I jokingly called it GB&T, Green Beret nap time. And we're like, all right, it's time for some GB&T.
Yeah.
And we would go in these rooms with this lady, and she would rub our head, give us warm blankets, like warm milk, and like talk us into sleeping. Oh, so sweetly and gently. Dude, after that week, I was a fucking rock star.
Right.
I felt amazing. But I wasn't quite there yet. So they, while this is going on, they're teaching you how to sleep. They take all your labs the first day. After they get you to sleep, you go in to meet this doctor. You get a 4-hour physical from toenails to the tip of your hair. And they find everything that's wrong with you. And they're like, all this stuff, all this pain you're dealing with, all these injuries, everything is pulling the bandwidth away from your brain to being functional. And then on top of it, your hormones are used to deploying. He told me your cortisol levels are 3 times the height they should be. Your testosterone levels are 4 times the height they should be. And he's like, we got to get you to normalize.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, that's bad. He's like, that's why you're so aggressive. Your body's so used to performing at this level.
Yeah.
You've stopped deploying, but physiologically, your body's craving it and wanting to go back. It needs that outlet for all this energy. And they asked me, do you want to do the holistic route or do you want to do the medication route? And I was like, being a medic, I knew if we can get the body to heal itself, it's the best way to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to be dependent on the VA for meds and appointments and all this shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather do the holistic route. This is where the story gets fucking silly. So NICO's amazing. They sign you up for art classes, cooking classes. You go to psychology, psychiatry, physiology, neurology, neuropsych, speech pathology. You go to all these appointments all day. It's a full day.
Mm-hmm.
But those art and music classes that I was talking about and cooking classes are sprinkled in there throughout the day between your appointments. And they regiment your diet based off of your injuries. And so, like, I never wanted to be a paleo. I think paleo is stupid.
Yeah.
But the doctor said it, like, stops inflammation to your brain and all this. So,
done. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Then I went to music class. And they're like, hey, what music do you enjoy? I'm like, I love Led Zeppelin. I love AC/DC.
Right? Yeah,
I love all that. I love
rock and roll.
Disturbed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love Pantera.
You got some leather pants for me? I'm ready.
Yeah,
Let's do this.
I love rock and roll.
Yes, rock and motherfucking roll.
She's like, if you want to do the holistic route, you got to calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
She's
Here's
like,
your pan flute.
she's like, this is just fueling your fire.
Mm-hmm.
And one common thread in all the SF guys, we had no hobby. We had no hobbies as adults. All we knew was
getting divorced,
war, and
some drinking
more war, some drinking,
yeah.
hanging out with the same 12 guys, telling the same war stories over and over again.
Listen, brother.
Yeah, it's the same stuff, right?
Yes.
So I took ukulele lessons, man. I learned how to play the ukulele in 4 weeks, man.
like a true operator. Yeah, like I'm gonna play
here
the
I am
fuck out
playing,
of this thing.
like, here's the ukulele. Like, but all these things, right, help me calm down and normalize, man. This program, NICO, is an amazing opportunity. And if anybody's in DC or wants to donate to something, donate to NICO. Yeah, it's a DoD program, but they do take any type of donations.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal program. They do artwork. They bring the families in, reintegrate you guys. They tell the families what's wrong with the soldiers. They showed my kids they show my kids like all the injuries on my brain. This is why Daddy gets upset sometimes.
Yeah.
And they explain it in a language that like everybody can understand. It's not some highfalutin shit. It's literally a one-stop shop for operators to like know what the fuck is wrong with them.
This is the thing about all of this recovery. I've taken a different path, but definitely, and though I'm not a Green Beret, I've done work with you guys. I mean, I've done a lot of the things, and I identify a lot with what you've experienced. And I was always like, PTSD, whatever, it doesn't seem that right. But when you add in the TBI, which for sure I have, I mean, I've been knocked out in civilian life. Forget about like Army life is like automatic.
Yeah.
Like we're going to issue you 3 knockouts, like one every couple of years, you know? It's crazy. And then you have this guy, lock himself in a room with people and kill him. And it's like, look, you have to understand how badly hurt some of these people are. We're not crazy, but we've been asked to do a lot so that everybody else can chill the fuck out.
I agree that we've asked the nation to do a lot. We've asked this. We've
asked service members. Yeah.
We've asked this. Let me rephrase.
Yeah.
We've asked this generation to do a lot of heavy lifting. We have gotten our priorities out of whack, and this is just my personal opinion. When you prioritize something as a commander, it's not what you're going to do, it's what you're not going to do. And as a nation, we haven't said no to anything yet. We haven't. And it's really disheartening that we continue to ask these guys. When I say guys, I mean female service members.
Sure.
We've asked these service members to do so much heavy lifting, but there's a difference. The spec ops community, the way I was raised, the level of resiliency that I have is much, much different than a conventional soldier.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for these kids because they don't have all the resources that we have as special operators. And there's not as much help out there for them. There's not as many safety nets in place for these guys.
Sure.
And we have to do a better job as a nation of actually taking care of these guys. Throwing medication at a problem isn't the answer.
Yeah.
Coddling people isn't the answer. But showing service members a little more empathy and bringing them under your wing to bring them into the sense of community, give them a sense of community again. Yeah. That's my personal perspective. And we've lost a lot of guys, 21, 22 a day, depending on which stats you read.
Yeah.
And it's because we as a nation don't have the level of resiliency that we used to. And we're asking the guys to do a lot. So it's a balance of both, in my mind.
There's a lot of companies out there that want to help service members get jobs. And if you don't have a Green Beret attached to your resume, a lot of times what you get are $10, $11, and $12 an hour jobs.
Oh, it's bullshit.
If you need help, how many problems do you add to your list by only making $10, $12, $11 an hour? I mean, it's
No, I agree.
crazy.
I think the transitioning process from the military is only as good as it's I think the transitioning process from the military today is only as strong as it is because of these 501Cs.
Yeah.
So the Army, when I came in, put me in a line, hut, here's your gym bag, shave your head, here's your rifle, go get online, do this. Like, it was very organized and structured. The machine just pulled you in, right?
Right.
It's like a shredder. You just stick it in. And when you come out the other end of this thing, all they do is hand you a stack of fucking papers.
Because you've done this process.
Yeah, I
recently.
did this process. Yeah. And it's like being handed a map without a compass and like navigate this shit. And it's a very wonky, weird system that guys aren't used to navigating.
Yeah.
All I did from the age of 18 was the Army. That's all I know.
Yeah.
In my adult life. I'm like Bilbo Baggins, man. I went to Mordor, and now I'm back in the Shire.
This goddamn brass cock ring. That's oh, this thing makes me feel good. Yeah, well, I'm always shocked that given all the companies that want to help people, why isn't every service member walking out with legitimate job offers at the level that they can work at? You know, I mean, look at what your experience level is. It's crazy.
Well, I'll tell you right now, man. Some of the job interviews that I went to, getting out. There's a stigma out there. There's a stigma that we're all fucked up or we're all fucking crazy, and that's not true, man.
Right.
We saw some weird and wonky shit, right? Like, we're Bilbo Baggins, man. We went to Mordor. Our journeys weren't just bitter. They were also sweet as well.
Yeah.
We helped a lot of people on the way. We did a lot of good. I really honestly have to say that there's so much stigma out there because of the fucking media on both sides of the house.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's complete garbage and filth, and we're doing a discredit to people. And the one thing that I know to be true in this world is you can't make sense of nonsense. And I know that seems like it's out of left field, but you don't know where these guys are. Their mind is in a nonsensical manner. It doesn't matter if it's a veteran locking himself in a room or a left-wing person going into YouTube or some kid who just got broke up with a girl in Florida and wants to, retaliate. You can't make sense of nonsense, man. And that's what it boils down to. We don't need to bring all this political bullshit into it. It's just nonsense. And that person is in a nonsensical level in their mind. That's just my personal opinion. And these employers out there, like, I'm going to tell you right now, a veteran can handle more in their lives as a military member than your average college grad. They were accountable for people's lives. They were accountable for millions of dollars of equipment. They were accountable for missions, operations.
Yeah.
And not only were they responsible for missions, but they were responsible for missions in areas of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Can you say that in your corporate world? Probably not. And these guys are coming out, like me as a Green Beret, when I filled out my little paperwork to do my transition, they're like, punch in your job code on this website. So I punch in my job code.
This is great. Yes.
I punch in my job code, and it spat out 3 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
It said, you could be a police officer. Okay, that's a noble profession, but with all the bullshit the cops have to go through today,
Yeah.
Don't know if I want to handle that.
Yeah, done enough.
Oh, you could be a security guard. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, I have language capability. I have a bachelor's degrry. Like,
cultural expert.
I'm a cultural expert. I know warfare. Like, I do public speaking,
operations.
leadership. I was responsible for my last job. I was responsible for over $16.7 million, and I'm going to be a fucking security guard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the next job was like paramilitary. Okay, got it.
You have not
Thanks.
done your job.
So
computer.
obviously, like, I'm just a gun bunny, and it does not compute in my mind. This whole system that they have, this Department of Labor garbage, it's filth. And me being a Green Beret, like, I know what I'm capable of in the real world.
Sure.
Like, I'm not worried about me. I'm worried about the young guys that are getting out. They come in, do their 4 or 5 years, they serve, they've bled in the same mud that I have, and they're getting fucked.
Yeah.
And it really, really bothers me.
Well, we've been over an hour, man, so I know we're going to have you on again, and definitely have you and Johnny on at the same time.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But you're right, that you're bringing up very, very important points. And one of my problems has been transition. That's really been hard. I'd rather be in combat than transitioning from military style to civilian style. It's been that rough for me. And I'm great at war. You're great at war. We're great warriors. But the other end of it, when you come back and no one would fucking even interview me. Can you believe that? One guy told me, go back to Afghanistan.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And like you, I've got an advanced degree. Yours happens to be from Harvard, paid for by George Bush.
That's a great story.
I know. We're gonna
with
get
the ukulele, too.
We're going to get him on the podcast, by the way. We're going to do that. But so he's Mikey Bee. I'm going to wrap this up. We're going to have you on again plenty of time. So you're Mikey Bee, and you are an American awesome badass hero, and I love you. Thank you for that.
Normal dude.
Well, I get to say what I want about you because I know what true is. You're also humble, and that's fine. You get to be humble, and that's definitely a character trait that's good for you. But also, your podcast is called Undiscovered Americans.
It is.
It's not quite out when this show drops. It will be out shortly after that. You guys should definitely check it out because Mikey is a smart, compassionate, brilliant guy who understands what it means to tell stories. And you've got Johnny Walker. And I'm not joking when I say this. I might be America's favorite spy. He is the best American I know because he is taking it all on. He is figuring it out. And if I could have 10,000 of those guys come across the border,
Truly.
I would take them. I don't care how they get here.
Yeah.
I want those guys on our side. So Johnny's great people. You guys should already know about that from having him on the show. So make sure you check out Mikey Bee. Again, I'm at PJ Turner, at Break It Down Show, at JohnLG69 on Twitter. You can always grab us there. Grab a hold. Let us know what you think. Comment, share. Let people know that this is out there because we make this show partly for each other because we got to cry a little bit, but also for you guys out there so you can have a better understanding of just what it is that we all went through and all of the other great stories that are out there on the Break It Down Show. So thank you all so much.
Thanks for having me on, Pete.
My pleasure.